welcome to another Tyrrell's Classic Workshop. This time round we're looking at a sort of favourite of mine because it's British, it's a sort of British bulldog, it's brutish, but it's also very refined as well. I love the concept of a big powerful fist of a car in a silk glove. It really appeals to me. And this is, along with the Bentley Turbo R, probably one of the best examples of it, although this is not the most brutal version of this car, but that has its own appeal. Aston Martin V8 Series 5 fuel injection. That's the exact description of this car. It's not the Aston Martin Vantage. It was the sort of supercar that Aston Martin launched in 1977, which was based on the predecessor of this car. This is the cooking model, the basic, if ever such an expensive car can be called that, the basic V8 Coupe. This is an established regular customer of ours going back many years, and it's in Concours condition. It has actually won Concours, and the engine compartment, in spite of the fact it's done 68,000 miles, astoundingly is largely original and in stunning show condition, as can be seen. And this is essentially, Aston Martin sort of got this right first time, really. The V8 came out in 1969, which it was originally always intended to have it. That's a separate story that I tell in the DBS V8 video, which is some videos ago. This is a car from 1988, but it is essentially the same car as the V8 launched in the late 1969 and revamped with a new front in 1973. It's the 5340cc V8, which Aston Martin, it's hemispherical combustion chambers, 4 cams, all alloy V8, beautiful piece of engineering for the time. And this later car has got the fuel injection system, the Weber Marelli fuel injection system that was used on lots of cars. It was a proprietary system. It was used on Ford Sierra Cosworths, Ferrari F40s, I think, had it, various Italian cars, Lancia Delta Integrale, all sorts of machines had this system on them, and it works very well. They do have a tendency to hunt from cold, these engines, if they're not quite right, if the coolant sensor goes out of value and various things. But I mean, the car has a right to have a few things wrong with it because it's 35 years old. This is a stunning example. It is a Concours winning car. It's finished in Winchester blue with the stunning Connolly magnolia hide Vomol interior, just beautiful leather, finest Wilton carpets. This is what I mean. It's a sort of gentleman's sporting coupe is how I would have described it at the time, and just a stunning looking machine. The details were rather that they did over the years were not massive. The interior has the burr walnut dashboard, which came in 1977, I think, for the 78 model year, the Oscar India model, as it's called, and it has the beautiful burr, as we say in the UK, burr walnuts, or burl walnut, burled walnut, as they say in the US. And it's the walnut tree. It's very rarefied because a walnut tree has to be a suitable size to get the breadth of veneer. Only about 18 inches of the entire walnut tree height that is actually burr walnut. So it's quite expensive. And Aston Martin, is in the typical British coach building tradition, actually put this over a wooden, probably ash, I think, dashboard, and we end up with this mirror finish result. And it's still mirror finish to this day. It's never been restored. And the funny thing is, the dashboard on these cars, this is one of the quirks of British high-end coach building. The dashboards were normally, the top roll as it's called, the black bit, was normally vinyl. It wasn't leather. And then I think the reason for that is because vinyl doesn't shrink in the sun in extreme heat, and leather does. So you see a lot of cars like Lamborghini Diablos, Bentley Turbo Rs, which have a leather top roll. They had it as an optional extra. What happens is the sunlight gets to them through the windscreen or the back window. They shrink as they dry out, and you begin to see fiberglass or aluminium or whatever the dashboard, the underneath material happens to be. You begin to see it in the corners. So that's why they went for vinyl. It was also cheaper. This is just a really charming, it's just aged gracefully into this beautiful classic car. Just a stunning example of British coach building. All this aluminium skin is hand formed over a wooden buck. It's like slices of wood that are sectioned each way, and then these panels are beautifully hand built over the wooden framework. And no two cars are the same. That's the beauty of this. It's not like a pressed out, stamped out body like 99.9% of cars are. It's actually got these beautiful details on it. And for example, this might be slightly, just a couple of millimeters higher than it is on another Aston Martin V8, or the profile of the line around the A-pillar might be different. This is how they were built. If you look at alloy-bodied Ferrari 275s from 275 GTBs from the 1960s, the profile of the front wing here and the bulbousness of the roof can be quite different on two different cars because they're hand-built. Some have more rounded front wings than others, and some have slightly more bulbous roofs. Just the look of the draw. They're not deliberately built that way, but this is the beauty of extreme hand-built coach building. But that does bring its problems. The sills on these cars, the actual structural member, the rocker panels, as they say in the US, the structural member that forms the bottom of the body at the outside, has, I think, 3 or 4 sections of steel in there, which form a box section. They weren't very well rust-proofed when they were new. Again, this is something with hand-built cars. They didn't have the development budget or the money available to start rust-proofing the cars properly. So they suffered badly. It is, after all, a 1960s body shell, the design, and cars weren't rust-proofed in the 1960s, no matter how much they cost. Not properly anyway. So the result is that they do need, they can need a lot of expensive restoration. We've restored these cars before. We can see some photographs here of great in-depth restoration work that was done. You literally remove the aluminium skin. It's riveted or bonded onto the steel substrate. We remove the aluminium skin in whole sections. Normally here they are sliced along here when sill work is being done. The entire back end of the car is taken off as one skin, and you have a fairly rudimentary pressed steel and square section steel framework underneath, all of which can then be got at and dealt with. It's just humidity in the air, rain, all sorts of things. They particularly go where the aluminium meets the metal here at the bottom of the A-post, because you get electrolytic reaction between dissimilar metals, aluminium in contact with steel. It happens. It's just something you have to accept with hand-built cars. But this is still a beautiful machine, absolutely lovely. The later cars, this fuel-injected engine is very tractable, and it's mated, as most of them were, with the Chrysler Torqueflite automatic transmission. And the funny thing is, the factory option extra was a ZF manual transmission. And legend has it that the ZF gearbox was 10 times as expensive as the Chrysler Torqueflite automatic transmission. Presumably Aston Martin charged extra for that and didn't just take it on the chin. I don't know. Just a lovely car. It's got lots of old features. I've mentioned the dashboard and the woodwork and the leather. It's got a fly-off handbrake, which Aston Martin was a relic from the 1930s, really, where you pull the handbrake and then push the button in to lock it, and then just pull it, boom, spring-loaded. It releases for releasing it. So just an all-round lovely package. We don't talk about the lack of room in the back seat. It's called a coupe or a 4-seater. It's not. But I remember sitting in the back of one of these. I was spellbound when I was 17, sitting in the back of one of these. My dad and a friend up in Scotland, who has since passed away, but he had cars like most people have rashers of bacon for breakfast. He changed them almost every day, and he had a red, what was the Storm Red Aston Martin V8 Coupe, an earlier one than this. And we drove around parts of Scotland with Dermot in this V8, and I was completely captivated by this car. And then he offered to let me drive it. And I couldn't believe it as a 16 or 17-year-old, no driving license. And he said, would you like to drive it? And this was on the west coast in Scotland, in Ayrshire. And you had single track roads with bumps and little humpback bridges on them with passing places. That's how they were then. And he said, come on, you can take it for a drive. And I did take it for a drive. In fact, I got it airborne over a humpback bridge. And even Dermot, who was a spirited driver, to say the least, turned a rather interesting shade of green. Not that I was looking at him. And we landed to be confronted by a mini clubman in a passing place waiting to come the other way. I did miss it, but it was all a bit interesting. But that's how memories are made. And so I absolutely love these cars. I really do. I think they're a fantastic piece of British alia, if such an expression exists. And so we're going to take this car for a run and see how it drives. Well, there are some cars that I road test that I know, assuming they're working properly, are going to be a pleasure to drive. And this is one of them. There is something special about Aston Martin V8s. I did a video some months ago on the DBS V8, which was finished in the James Bond On Her Majesty's Secret Service colour of olive green, which is just a stunning colour in my opinion. And this Winchester blue is up there too. I remember some years ago I went to the motor show as a schoolboy with a friend of mine, and the Aston Martin stand, I think it was 1977, something like that, 78, they had the Lagonda, the square-shaped car, a V8 Volante and a V8 Vantage, all in, I think it was Chichester blue, the earlier version of this, but I can't remember. And they looked stunning with this magnolia hide. All three cars, same colour scheme, on the motor show stand, under the spotlights. It was just a really seminal moment, I believe, in Aston Martin's history to have that beautiful presence there. But this car, of course, is very similar to that. Although it's not a Vantage, as I said earlier, it's a cooking V8 saloon, they called them, or V8 Coupe. Saloon stretching it a bit, considering the size or lack of the back seats, but just a great place to be, this. It's just a real grand touring car, a car you could eat up the miles in, particularly in lovely sunny weather such as this. You don't need to worry about the sills rusting and other parts of the aluminium bodywork fizzing away, because they do, as I mentioned earlier. A lot of these cars now, almost all of them, have needed major restoration work because they do corrode. Aston Martin, just like a lot of car manufacturers, didn't think of long-term corrosion issues and preventing it. And there are a couple of characteristics that this car has always been known for, because it's not the lightest car in the world. Even though the body is, the outer skin is aluminium, still the basic understructure is sturdy and weighty. But it's the ride handling compromise. Obviously, the heavier the car, the more weighty suspension you have to keep everything in balance and everything in check. And that normally leads to stiffer suspension to try and keep it all under control. But the ride handling compromise is great on this. It rolls slightly because it hasn't got the stiffness, the thicker anti-roll bars of the Vantage, and it's a big car. But nevertheless, it's a good compromise. The specification of the springing and the Coney dampers that were standard on this, they got it just right. The calibration is very good, actually, and that's one of the reasons why it's so comfortable. The Chrysler Torqueflite automatic transmission is behaving itself very well. A sort of evergreen unit that was used in, I think the Jensen cars used that too. It's just a very good package all around, this car, very good, and it's making a reasonably good job of going over these terrible bumps on our test car routes. It just feels expensive. It feels aristocratic. It really does. That's the word I would use for it. Cultured. And of course, it was a very expensive car when it was new. Not far off the price, I think, of a Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow. And this car is arguably as hand-built as a Rolls-Royce was. If not more so, actually, because the bodywork on this is hand-formed aluminium over wooden bucks, which is real artisan stuff. And the Rolls-Royce body shells were pressed steel from Pressed Steel Fisher. And the Aston Martin uses the same leather as Rolls-Royce used, the Connolly Leather, which was really the best automotive leather money could buy. And it's testament to it that it's still in such beautiful condition as it is now. But it all adds that it still smells of lovely leather, this car, remarkably, after 35 years. It still smells of lovely leather. The woodwork is still mirror finish, burr walnut. It's just it's quite a cyberitic place to be, if I can use that adjective. It makes one feel good, and that is isn't that really the essence of driving a lovely classic car? It's not the fastest car in the world. It's not the smoothest. It's not the quietest. It's not the most economical. But it is lovely. It's a thing of beauty. British beauty. And I'm now just going to test the fuel system with that new pump fitted. We'll just open the taps and give it a bit of give it a bit of head. That lovely Aston Martin bellow. The nosedive's a bit under braking. We'll just try that again. Here we go. Wow, we're running out of road here. For all I say about it being a gentleman's express, it can still move, this car. It's quick. It's never going to be modern supercar performance, but it is quick, this car. That lovely bellow, that V8 bellow, is just so addictive. They've just got big lungs, this engine. It really has. Just wonderful. Very reassuring brakes. At the time, the motoring journalists in the 70s always commented, once they're warmed up, how good the brakes on these are. No ABS. No production car had ABS when this car was developed. And it's essentially, apart from the fuel injection, that they got it so right Aston Martin with this car. It's essentially almost identical to the DBS V8 from 1969, early 70s, and they changed to this front end from the 4 headlamp grille on the DBS V8. I think it was about 1973 they changed to that. It's essentially the same car. We've just got to try this again, just because we can. That's 2,000 RPM. Oh. That is addictive. It's intoxicating. The power band is so smooth, it just builds. It's both torquey and very powerful at the top end. It's a beautiful, smooth power curve. Just lovely. Well, that concludes another Tyrrell's Classic Workshop video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please do remember to like and share and subscribe. It does help the algorithms, and we'll be back with something else very soon.